We're going to start out with, let's say, a white bead. And what you're going to do is take the left leg of one and the adjacent right leg of another joint, and we're going to put both of these through one bead, one white bead. Got one through, sticking the other one. Pull it up all the way to the top. You want to get it to a point where it's, you know, kind of tight. It forms a comfortable V, but it's not too tight. It's not like all the way up here. So it forms a nice triangle. And then you're going to do a knot, just like this. Tighten the knot up. And give this end a little bit of a tug too, to secure it. I'm doing the same to the blue bead, my second bead. Tying this into a knot. Make sure the blue bead doesn't fall into the middle of your knot. Alright, tightening up the knot till right about there. And then give the other end a pull to tighten it up. I just finished making my first row of beads, and as you can see, it's just as we planned it. 1 white, 5 blue, 1 white, 5 blue, 1 white, 5 blue, totaling 18. We're gonna go ahead and make our second row now. So to make this pattern, I'm gonna start right here with the right leg from this blue bead and the left leg from this white bead. And if you remember the pattern, I want the white border to start moving diagonally down this way, so that means right now I want to use a white bead. And again, you don't want to make it too tight, but just a nice comfortable V. The next bead over here will actually be white as well, because it's basically a white border that's forming its way diagonally this way and that way. The third bead on the second row will actually be blue, because I'm slowly forming my blue triangle here. From the very top corner, it's going to come diagonally down this way, so I want this bead to be blue. As you can see, I have now finished the second row, and the sequence of beads that I used starting right under the very first bead we laid on was white, white, and then 4 blue, 2 white, 4 blue, 2 white, 4 blues, which also adds up to 18. But now as we start our third row of beads, because right now, you know, the strings are getting more and more spread out, we're going to change to that other method where instead of putting both this leg and this leg into the same bead, they're each going to go into a separate one. So continuing this white diagonal line that I'm trying to create here, I'm going to put a white bead on this leg and a white bead on this leg. So I'm going to take 2 white beads and put them onto each end. One here, one here. Bring them up. And then with them both sitting like this, I'm going to tie another knot. So I'm going to continue making my way around the gourd again. Now I'm thinking about my beads in pairs. So I'm putting a pair of white, then I'm going to put a pair of blue here, then another pair of blue, then another pair of blue, then a pair of white, etc. So as you can see, I've reached a point where in my original design I had planned to go back to one bead per both strands. So kind of like here where it's like 2 rows of single and then I go into the double. I was planning to go back to the single and then finish up my design, but it looks like I'm not quite far down enough on the gourd yet. I want to make a few extra rows so that this part is kind of like baggy, so that there's looseness for the beads to move around. So I'm gonna actually keep going with the pairs and actually maybe bring the blue back down so maybe it looks like a blue diamond. Gonna do that for a few more and then we're going to wrap up the design. You can see how I'm keeping it pretty loose at this point so that it's hanging off the edge of the gourd. I'm not tightening it so that it hugs the side. At this point I think we've gone far enough down the gourd to give you an idea of how much space is left on the bottom. There's about this. You don't want to cover too much of the bottom because remember when you're playing the shekere you want the heel of your hand to be able to hit this part without beads being in the way. So I think now we're ready to go back down to the 1 bead per 2 strands. We're going to do a couple rows that way and then we're going to do a few more rows without beads on them. By now you can see that I've done 2 rows at the bottom of just a single bead and then 1 more row of no beads, just a knot. And now we're ready to make another circle string similar to what we did at the top. So I'm going to flip this over, take a look at how much space we have at the bottom of this thing. Take 1 string, measure about the circumference that I'm going to aim for, and go for something like this. Tie a double knot. Now if I choose to, I can do the same thing I did at the top and burn this knot so that it stays in place. And then I'm going to knot each of these strings to this bottom string. Here I have set up my shekere upside down, and this is how my ring fits right over it. Now I'm going to continue the pattern that I was doing before, except I'm going to take the left leg of one, the right leg of another, and tie this to the final bottom ring.